The courtroom smells of lemon polish and impending ruin. It's a clean, institutional coldness that settles in the marrow of your bones. Overhead, the fluorescent lights hum with a low, predatory vibration, filling the silence between breaths. My father, Sterling Montgomery, sits at the petitioner's table. He doesn't shout. He doesn't have to. He radiates a chilling, quiet authority, his charcoal pinstripe suit without a single wrinkle, his silver hair caught in the sterile glow. He looks like a god. He speaks like an executioner. Charity has its limits, Your Honor, he says, his voice a smooth, practiced velvet. He doesn't look at me. He treats my presence like a stain he's finally scrubbing clean. The girl sitting across from us is a fiction. She never served. She never bled. She simply stole our name to mask a decade of aimless vagrancy. Victoria Langley is a phantom of her own making, and I will no longer fund the haunting. The jolt is visceral. It's the sound of 10 years of sand, shrapnel, and the screams of dying men being erased by a single, elegant sentence. The asymmetry is absolute. To my left, a phalanx of high society machinery, 6 lawyers in $5,000 shoes, mountain of files, and the crushing weight of the Montgomery legacy. To my right, nothing. No counsel. No documents. Just me, my navy silk dress, and a tremor buried so deep beneath my skin that only a soldier would recognize it as the urge to draw a weapon. I keep my eyes on the bench, my back a steel rod. I am a ghost medic in a room full of ghosts. Then I feel it. Judge Elias Thorne leans forward. He doesn't speak. He doesn't rule. But his gaze lingers on me for a fraction of a second longer than the law requires. It is an unreadable, heavy stare, a flicker of recognition that defies every lie my father just told. In that heartbeat, the spring stays coiled, but the debt of justice is finally born. The air inside the Drake Hotel's grand ballroom is chilled to a surgical 20 degrees Celsius. It's a calculated climate. It keeps the lilies from wilting and the socialites from sweating through their silk. To the 600 donors gathered beneath the crystal chandeliers, the scent is opulence. To me, Victoria Langley, the smell is a sensory trap. In the high desert heat of Kandahar, lilies were the scent of death. We used heavy, cloying perfumes to mask the metallic rot of the field hospital. Every breath I take in this room is a battle against a ghost. I stand at the periphery, back straight, a steel rod against a marble pillar. I am wearing a navy silk dress that Julian, my husband, selected for me. It's beautiful, expensive, high-collared. It's designed to hide the jagged keloid scar running from my collarbone to the base of my ear. Julian calls it an eyesore. I call it a map of the day I refuse to die. My father, Sterling Montgomery, stands at the mahogany podium. Light bounces off his silver hair and the flawless cut of his charcoal suit. He looks like the archetype of the benevolent patriarch, the kind of man whose handshake is worth $1 billion. My daughter Victoria, Sterling says. His voice is a practiced, velvet baritone. He pauses. His eyes brim with a manufactured grief he has perfected over 5 years. She is a casualty of a war that did not end for her when she stepped off the plane. She is a soul lost to the darkness of her own mind, a charity case I carry with a father's pride. The pity moves through the room like a slow-moving fog. I feel their eyes, soft, judgmental, condescending. They see a broken thing. They see a woman who spent 10 years as a combat medic and came back unstable. They don't see the tactical defense mechanism I've engaged. My silence isn't a symptom, it's a tool. In the back of a hovering Black Hawk, with the rotors screaming and the floor slick with blood, you don't panic. You observe. You map the exits. You time the rhythm of the room. You wait for the gap in the wire. Julian approaches me. His fingers dig into my elbow. It's a practiced cruelty. He knows exactly how to leave a bruise where the silk hides it. Smile, Victoria, he hisses. His breath is bourbon and peppermint. Sterling is giving you a legacy. Don't embarrass us by looking like you're back in the dirt. I don't look at Julian, I don't speak, I focus on the front table. Judge Elias Thorne sits there. He's the only man not clapping. He's a former general in the JAG Corps. He knows the difference between a trauma response and a tactical retreat. He isn't looking at my dress, he's looking at my hands. They are resting flat and motionless against the fabric, fingers spaced exactly for a quick draw or a surgical incision. On Thorn's lapel is a rare commendation for valor in Fallujah. My pulse, I track it by the throb in my neck, stays at a steady 60. Sterling and Julian think they are burying me in silk and pity. They've forgotten the first rule of the frontline: never underestimate the person who knows how to stitch a wound in the dark. The gala fades into a blur of high-pitched laughter and the clinking of silver against bone china. The sound mimics the metallic rattle of shrapnel in a collection tray. As the keynote ends, Julian leads me toward a secluded alcove near the garden fountain. The air is sharper here. The shadows are longer. He lets go of my arm. The absence of his grip is almost as loud as the pressure was. The board meeting is in 3 days, Victoria, Julian says. The public warmth is gone. His voice is a legal blade now. Sterling is moving to take full control of the Veterans Indemnity Fund. You're going to sign the waiver. You'll declare yourself medically unfit. It's for your own good. You spend your nights staring at the walls of that warehouse. You aren't fit to hold $1 billion of defense capital. The charity Sterling mentioned is a lie. The Indemnity Fund is a debt of justice. It was granted to me for my service and my injuries. It was intended to build trauma centers. But Sterling has been using it as a private piggy bank to cover his failing real estate ventures and fraudulent defense contracts. He needs me insane so he can legally bypass my signature. The fund stays with the clinic, Julian. My voice is low, a gritty rasp, the sound of someone who has spent years shouting over mortar fire. I know about the Grade B ceramic plating Sterling sold to the Army. I know the armor is failing in the field. That fund is the only thing that will pay for the litigation when the families start suing. Julian's face contorts, the corporate mask slips. He isn't protecting my father. He's covering his own tracks. He's been Sterling's shadow auditor for years. If I reclaim my voice, he burns first. You're a ghost, Victoria, he sneers. He steps into my personal space. Nobody believes a woman who jumps at the sound of a champagne cork. You're a charity case who got lucky. If you don't sign that waiver, I'll have you committed before the sun comes up. I look at him. I let the gray man facade drop for a fraction of a second. I don't look at him as a wife. I look at him as a target. I see the crotch of his tie is slightly off-center. Adrenaline, I see his weight shifted to his right foot. Impatience. I've survived men much more dangerous than you with nothing but a scalpel and a prayer, Julian. The strike is sharp, a backhanded slap, it's pure ego. It's intended to humiliate. My head snaps to the side. The taste of copper fills my mouth. My tooth slices into my inner lip. I don't stumble, I don't cry, I stand there. I feel the heat bloom across my cheek. I check my vitals watch. Pulse, 72, slightly elevated, still combat effective. I spit a small glob of blood onto the snow at his feet. Tactical error, I whisper. Julian opens his mouth, but the words die. He sees my eyes, it isn't fear. It's the cold, calculated assessment of a medic deciding where to make the first incision. Behind us in the shadows of the hedges, I see a figure move. It's Judge Thorn. He saw the strike. He saw the blood. The mirror of Sterling's perfect family hasn't just cracked. It's beginning to shatter. The industrial district at 3:00 a.m. is a landscape of rusting iron and heavy river fog. It's a world away from the Drake's gold leaf ceilings. I pull my sedan into the shadows of a weathered brick warehouse near the rail yards. To Sterling, this is my art studio, a tax write-off, a place for his broken daughter to smear paint on canvas and pretend she's healing. He's never stepped foot inside. He wouldn't survive the air. I stand before the heavy steel door. I don't use a key. I press my palm against a concealed biometric scanner hidden behind a loose, salt-stained brick. The lock disengages with a pressurized hiss. It's a sound that always brings me back, the pneumatic ramp of a C-130 opening over a dark tarmac. The studio is a lie. Inside, the air is dry and smells of ozone and cold coffee. Banks of high-end monitors cast a pale, flickering blue light across the room. There are no canvases here. There are shelves stocked with trauma kits, signal jammers, and stacks of unredacted logistics manifests. This is the nerve center of Langley Risk Consulting. For 5 years, I haven't been hiding. I've been a deep cover operative in my own life. While Sterling mocked my fragility, I was intercepting his encrypted mail. While Julian belittled my intellect, I was mapping the shell companies they used to siphon the Veterans Indemnity Fund. I sit at the terminal. My fingers move across the keys with the same rhythmic precision I once used to pack a sucking chest wound. I pull up the Montgomery Vane folder. A new data packet has arrived from an offshore leak. I scan the documents. My eyes narrow. The blue light reflects off the scar on my neck. "You greedy fool," I whisper. The sound of my own voice feels foreign in the quiet. The files reveal a double cross. Julian isn't just embezzling to cover Sterling's gambling on bad real estate. He's building a poison pill. He's been funneling the stolen indemnity funds into a private account held in the name of Sterling's long-term mistress, Alina. The logic is brutal. Julian and Alina are planning to bankrupt Sterling, trigger a forced sale of the defense contracts, and vanish with the liquid assets. I'm the designated fall girl, the mentally unstable heir who signed away the rights. I'm the one who will be left holding an empty bag in a locked ward. I reach into the back of my desk. My hand closes around a heavy, charred piece of shrapnel casing. The smell hits me instantly. Burnt metal, tangy, bitter, it's the scent of a detonated IED. Suddenly, the blue light of the monitors is the flash of an explosion. The warehouse floor is the sand of a roadside ditch outside Kandahar. I can feel the grit in my teeth. I can hear the ringing in my ears that never truly stops. I ground myself. I squeeze the jagged edge of the casing until it bites into my palm. Pain is a tether to the present. This shrapnel isn't a memento. It's a high-capacity encrypted drive. It contains the ghost ledger, every proof of their treason, every metallurgical report on the faulty armor, every cent stolen from the men I bled for. I slot the drive into the terminal. The spring is coiling tighter. I'm no longer just auditing a fraud. I'm preparing a battlefield. Sterling wants to erase my soul. Julian wants to steal my future. They've forgotten one thing. You don't corner a combat medic. We know exactly how much blood a body can lose before it stops fighting. I'm going to make sure they lose every drop. The Drake Hotel garden is a labyrinth of manicured boxwoods and deep, amber shadows. The air tastes of frost and Lake Michigan salt. It's too quiet. In the distance, the muffled thrum of the gala's orchestra feels like a heartbeat I've outlived. I stand by the frozen stone fountain. My breath plumes white in the cold. I don't move, I wait. I hear his footsteps before I see him. Heavy, arrogant, the rhythmic crunch of gravel under expensive Italian leather. Julian stalks out of the ballroom. His silhouette is a jagged tear against the soft glow of the garden lanterns. He's discarded the doting husband mask. His face is raw with the heat of his own panic. "I'm done playing Victoria," Julian says. His voice is a low, jagged scrape. "I just spoke to the board's chairman. We've moved the mental competency hearing to tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. You won't even be allowed in the room. We're declaring you a ward of Sterling's estate by noon. The papers are already drafted. It's over." I turn to face him. I keep my hands at my sides, fingers loose. Stoicism is my armor. I don't give him the satisfaction of a flinch. Internal scan, pulse 82, adrenaline rising, combat effective. "You're moving fast, Julian," I say. My voice is steady, a flatline. Is it because you know the SEC just flagged the administrative fees you moved into Alina's account? Or is it because you're worried Sterling will find out you're planning to leave him holding the bag for the Grade B armor scandal? He stops dead. The world goes silent. I see the fear hit him. It's a physical thing. He looks like a man who just realized he stepped on a pressure plate. The click of the detonator is echoing in his head. You think anyone will listen to you? He snarls. He steps closer. I can smell the sour heat of his sweat and the expensive scotch. You're a ghost, Victoria. A broken girl who sees monsters in every shadow. You're nothing but a casualty Sterling hasn't finished burying. I don't see monsters, Julian, I say. I don't blink. I see structural failures, and you are the biggest one in this family. He loses it. It isn't a measured strike this time. No correction for the sake of appearances. It is a closed-fist blow of pure, unhinged rage. The world tilts. I don't dodge. I lean into the impact, taking the kinetic energy through my jaw. My boots slide an inch in the snow. I fall back against the stone rim of the fountain. The cold water, frozen solid, is a shock against my spine. As I go down, my hand brushes the ivy on the fountain's base. My fingers graze the miniature high-definition tactical camera I planted an hour ago. Target baited. Evidence secured. I sit on the cold stone. My lip is split again. I wipe a fresh trail of blood with the back of my hand. I don't cry, I don't beg. Suddenly, the smell hits me. The fountain has an iron decorative grate. The cold, wet metal smells like the shrapnel casing in my warehouse. Burnt metal. The tang of a detonated IED. The garden vanishes. I'm back in the ditch. The sand is hot against my neck. I can hear the ringing in my ears. The young lieutenant is screaming, and my hands are deep in his leg, trying to find the artery. I can smell the cordite. I can feel the vibration of the Black Hawk coming in for extraction. Ground, ground, ground. I squeeze the frozen stone until my knuckles turn white. I pull myself back to the Drake. I look up at Julian through my hair. He's standing over me, chest heaving, his hand already beginning to swell. In the field we call that a blind sector, Julian, I whisper. My voice is terrifyingly calm. It's the place you don't check before you move, and it's exactly where I've trapped you. The sound of a heavy door opening echoes through the garden. The light from the lobby spills out, cutting a long path across the snow. A tall, imposing figure steps into the light. He wears a heavy wool coat. His posture is unmistakable. Military, command. It is Judge Elias Thorne. He stands perfectly still. He doesn't say a word. He looks at the blood on my face. He looks at Julian's bruised knuckles. The silence is a heavy, living thing. The wild card is no longer hidden. The friction has reached its ignition point. Julian thinks he's won the morning. He doesn't realize he's already lost the night. The Drake Hotel ballroom is a sea of glittering silk and tinkling crystal, but the alcove where Judge Elias Thorne sits is a fortress of shadow. I walk back inside, my face throbbing, the split in my lip a warm salt iron sting. I don't head for the bar. I don't head for the restroom to clean the blood. I head straight for the man who hasn't clapped once tonight. Thorne doesn't look up as I approach. He's nursing a glass of neat bourbon. He looks like a man who has seen enough high-altitude maps to know when a storm is coming. I sit across from him. My movements are precise, minimal. The silk of the dress Julian chose for me rustles, like dry tall grass in a sniper's nest. Thorne slides a second glass toward me. Your vitals are spiked, Langley, he says. His voice is a low, gravelly rasp. It sounds like boots on dry earth. He finally looks up. His eyes are hard, military grade. I saw the movement in the garden through the glass. You're baiting him. That's a dangerous game to play with a man who has nothing left to lose but his freedom. I reach for the glass. I don't look at my husband, who is currently re-entering the room and trying to hide his swollen hand behind a cocktail napkin. I've played games with men holding remote detonators, Judge, I say. My voice is thin, cold. Julian is just a suit with a short fuse. Thorn leans in. The light catches the Valor commendation on his lapel. It's a small, heavy piece of metal that means more than everything in this room combined. My son speaks about you in his sleep, Victoria, Thorn says. The words hit me harder than Julian's fist. He talks about the ghost who stitched his femoral artery back together with a piece of paracord while the sky was falling in Fallujah. He told me about a specific knot, a double-loop cinch. The air in the alcove suddenly feels thin. The knot, my thumbprint. The smell of the bourbon in my glass, smoky and charred, suddenly shifts. It becomes the smell of burnt metal. Cordite, the bitter tang of a detonated IED. The ballroom floor dissolves into a wash of ochre dust. I can see Thorn's son, 20 years old, pale as a sheet, dying in the dirt. I remember the paracord. I remember the carboner. I remember the exact tension of that knot. It was the only thing standing between that boy and a body bag. Internal scan, pulse 90, grounding. I squeeze the glass until the edges bite into my palm. I pull myself back from the desert. I'm the one who kept your military file under level 7 restriction, Thorn continues. He's not looking at the broken girl Sterling sold to the donors. He's looking at a comrade. Sterling thinks he's burying you by claiming you're unstable. I've let him. I used your instability as a legal shroud. As long as the world thinks you're shattered, Montgomery's lawyers won't look for the forensic auditor living inside their house. But the clock just ran out. Midnight, I say. Exactly, Thorn nods. Sterling signs that defense contract at 12. If that ink dries, the Grade B armor fraud becomes protected by executive privilege. He'll fold the losses into the merger, and the evidence vanishes forever. I look at the gold watch on his wrist. It's nearly 11. I'm risking my bench for this, Victoria. If you fail to prove the fraud in that boardroom tonight, I can't stop the commitment papers Julian filed. You'll be in a locked ward by dawn. I drain the bourbon. It burns. It's the right kind of pain. It matches the fire in my chest. I didn't survive Kandahar to be buried in a Chicago penthouse, Judge, I say. I stand up. I don't smooth my dress. I don't check my hair. I just look at the exit. Prepare your marshals. We're going to perform a tactical triage on that boardroom. Thorn gives me a sharp single nod. The wild card is on the table. The friction has reached the ignition point. Julian thinks he's won the morning. He doesn't realize the extraction team is already in the building. The Section 12 competency hearing is held in Sterling's private library at the break of dawn. The room is an architectural lie. It's all dark mahogany, leather-bound books that no one reads, and a fire that provides heat but no light. 3 court-appointed psychiatrists sit in a semicircle in front of the desk. Their silver pens are poised like bayonets. Sterling stands by the window. He's silhouetted against the gray Chicago sleet. He looks like a man carrying the weight of a tragic legacy. The noble, grieving father. Julian sits in the corner, his hand bandaged, his eyes tracking my every move with the frantic energy of a cornered rat. Dr. Aris, Sterling says. His voice is a low, mournful hum. Please, explain to the board why my daughter's recollections are a symptom of her trauma. Help them understand why we must intervene. The doctor turns to me. He's a man whose professional integrity was clearly traded for a Montgomery retainer a long time ago. Victoria, Aris says. He keeps his tone soft, patronizing. You've been claiming that your father is involved in illegal defense logistics. You speak of shipment IDs and ceramic densities. Isn't it true that these are just echoes? A way for your mind to process the chaos you saw in Kandahar by turning it into a corporate conspiracy. I sit in the center of the room. My hands are resting flat on my knees. I am entering tactical deposition mode. I am not a patient. I am a witness. I am the black box recovered from the crash. You want to talk about my hallucinations, doctor? My voice cuts through the room. It's low, gritty, the sound of a radio operator reporting from a hot LZ. Fine, let's talk about the Ghost Fleet Manifest. I don't look at Sterling. I look at the wall behind him. I begin to recite a string of alphanumeric codes. Shipment IDs for low-grade ceramic plating leaving a port in Dubai. I don't speak with the frantic energy they expect. I speak with a rhythmic, haunting cadence. Bravo 907 Delta. The smell in the library shifts. The scent of old paper and wood smoke is gone. It's replaced by the tang of burnt metal. The bitter, acidic bite of cordite. I'm back in the desert. I'm looking at a shattered chest plate. The ceramic didn't catch the round. It turned into 1,000 tiny knives. I can feel the grit of the sand in my teeth. I can hear the high-pitched whistle of a punctured lung. Echo 2 Kilo Foxtrot. I recite the exact tensile strength of the armor Sterling sold to the Army. I recite the delusion of the offshore account numbers where the kickbacks were deposited. I'm giving them everything. Sterling's confident posture falters. He thinks I'm rambling. He thinks I'm proving his point, that I'm lost in the war. He doesn't realize that Judge Thorne is listening to every word via the secure line encrypted in my pulse watch. Every delusion, I confess, is a data point for a federal indictment. I am using my supposed insanity as a Trojan horse. I am delivering the evidence into the legal record, while my father smirks at my breakdown. As you can see, Dr. Era says, turning to the board members, she's completely detached from reality. She's reliving the trauma in real time. On the contrary, doctor, I say. I finally look at Sterling, my eyes are cold, flat. In the field, detached means objective, and the objective truth is that Sterling Montgomery didn't just steal my inheritance. He sold the soldiers I served with a lie that comes in a body bag. He sold them grade B plating and called it Langley Premium. He traded their lives for this library. The room goes ice cold. Sterling's face drains of color, the smirk is gone. He realizes, for the first time, that the broken thing he brought home isn't a victim. She's the lead investigator. I check my watch, 09:45. The spring has reached maximum compression. All that's left is the release. I stand up without being dismissed. I don't wait for their verdict. I've already delivered mine. Julian knows. I see it in the way his eyes avoid mine as we exit the library. He knows the gray man has been replaced by a predator. While the psychiatrists are busy in the hallway, debating my detachment over lukewarm coffee, Julian breaks toward my private quarters. He isn't looking for jewelry, he's looking for the kill switch. I find him in my room. The air is thick with his frantic energy. My bedside drawer has been ripped out, its contents spilled across the Persian rug. He's breathing like a man who just realized he's been sleeping in a viper's nest. Then he finds it. He pulls the charred, jagged shrapnel casing from its olive drab gauze. He holds it up. His face is a mask of vicious, desperate triumph. "This is it, isn't it, Victoria?" he snarls, his voice cracks. "Your anchor, the piece of metal that keeps you trapped in the dirt. You're so pathetic, clinging to the thing that broke you." He doesn't understand. For a combat medic, trauma isn't a souvenir, it's a case study. You keep the shrapnel to remind you of the structural failure, so you never let it happen again. "Julian, put that down," I say. My voice is steady, boring, I don't move from the doorway. "Fragile like you," he laughs, it's a high-pitched, jagged sound. "Without your trauma to hide behind, you're nothing but a blank slate we can rewrite. Sterling will sign the contract at midnight, and you'll have a padded room by 1. He throws the casing onto the marble floor with everything he has. The heavy metal clatters and sparks against the stone. He isn't satisfied. He stomps on it with the heel of his Italian loafer. He grinds the memento into the floor until I hear the external shell snap. I stand there, I don't stop him, I don't even flinch. Suddenly, the scent hits me. The friction of metal on marble releases it. Burnt metal, the bitter, acidic tang of a detonated IED. The room dissolves. The marble becomes the sun-baked asphalt of Route Irish. I can feel the heat on my neck. I can hear the high-pitched hum in my ears that usually means a secondary device is nearby. I can see the smoke. I can see my squad leader's boots, still smoking, 20 yards away. Internal scan, pulse 95, grounding, grounding. I squeeze the doorframe until the wood bites into my palm. I pull myself back to the room. I look at Julian. He's panting, staring at the shattered piece of metal at his feet. "Julian," I say, my voice drops to a terrifyingly cold register. In the 1st Battalion, we didn't carry mementos. We carried equipment. That wasn't a souvenir. It was a physical encrypted drive with a kinetic trigger seal. His face goes slack. The arrogant fire in his eyes dies instantly. A small, rhythmic blue light begins to pulse from the crushed casing on the floor. By breaking the exterior shell, he has initiated a dead man's dump. The ghost files, the unredacted proof of the armor failures, the bank routing numbers to Alina's accounts, and the stolen veteran pensions, are currently being broadcast via an encrypted satellite burst. To the SEC, to the JAG Corps, directly to Judge Thorne's private server. "You didn't just destroy my memory, Julian," I whisper. I step into the room. Outside, through the reinforced glass of the penthouse, the first faint sound of sirens begins to wail. It's a beautiful, lonely sound. You just signaled the start of the extraction. I don't look at him again. I walk past him and pick up my heavy trauma bag from the closet. I check the contents. Sterile gauze, scalpels, morphine, everything I need for the final triage. Julian is still standing over the broken metal, staring at the blue light like it's a countdown. He's right about one thing: the spring has uncoiled, and the release is going to be deafening. The clock on the mahogany wall strikes 2:00 a.m., a hollow, rhythmic sound, like a firing pin hitting a dud. The air in the Sterling Montgomery boardroom is thick, tasting of expensive scotch and the electric ozone of a dying empire. Sterling stands at the head of the obsidian table. He looks invincible. His silver hair is perfect. His silk tie is straight. Before him lies the savior contract, the merger that will bury the Grade B armor scandal under a mountain of fresh capital. The board members sit like statues, men who have never seen a day of mud, men who think risk is a line on a spreadsheet. "To a new era," Sterling declares. He raises the gold-nibbed pen. His hand is steady. The double doors groan as I kick them open. The sound is an explosion. I am no longer the ghost in navy silk. I've shed the dress in the hallway. I'm wearing my weathered tactical jacket. My hair is pulled back so tight it pulls at the corners of my eyes. My boots track the grit and salt of the Chicago winter across his $50,000 rug. The board members recoil. Their eyes go wide. It's a primal reaction. They realize a predator just walked into the sanctuary. The only thing ending tonight, Sterling, is the lie. My voice is the steady, low-frequency thrum of a combat drum. I walk to the center of the table. I don't wait for an invitation. I drop my heavy trauma kit onto the obsidian glass. Crack! The glass doesn't shatter, but the sound rattles their crystal tumblers. It's the sound of the front lines coming home. I don't reach for a lawyer's brief. I reach for the digital tablet synced to the dead man's dump Julian accidentally triggered. "I've spent 5 years performing financial triage on this company while you played king," I announce. I swipe the screen. The ghost ledger projects onto the far wall. The blue light washes over Sterling's face, turning him into a specter. "You didn't build this empire on traditional values. You bled the Veterans Indemnity Fund dry to pay for this glass tower. You sold Grade B ceramic armor to boys who trusted your name. Boys like the ones I had to zip into bags because your premium grade plating shattered like glass under a 7.62 round. Suddenly, the smell hits me. The heat from the overhead projector is cooking the dust on the lens. Burnt metal, the bitter, acidic tang of cordite. The boardroom vanishes. I'm back in the Black Hawk. The floor is vibrating. It's slick with iron-smelling blood. I'm looking at a shattered chest plate. The ceramic didn't catch the round. It turned into 1,000 tiny knives that shredded the lungs of a 20-year-old kid from Ohio. I can feel the grit of the sand in my teeth. I can hear the high-pitched whistle of the punctured pleura. Internal scan, pulse 90. Grounding, grounding. I press my thumb against the jagged scar on my neck until the pain brings me back to the obsidian table. Sterling's face is a mask of crumbling stone. Julian lunges for the tablet, his bandage coming loose, his eyes wild. She's hysterical. Security, remove her. Julian doesn't get 2 steps. The double doors swing open again. No kicking this time, just the heavy, measured weight of authority. Judge Elias Thorne enters. He's flanked by 4 federal marshals in tactical vests. The validation gap snaps shut. The room suddenly feels very small, very cold. Thorne doesn't look at the board. He doesn't look at the scotch. He walks straight to me. In front of the men who called me a charity case, the men who whispered about my broken mind, the judge, a former general, stops. He clicks his heels. He brings his hand to his brow in a crisp, sharp salute. Specialist Langley, Thorne says. His voice echoes with the weight of a decade of gratitude. The extraction is complete. The evidence is verified. Stand down. I return the salute. My hand is a rock. The spring has finally uncoiled. The pressure that's been building in my chest for 5 years, the silence, the gaslighting, the pity, it all releases in one long, steady breath. I don't look at my father. I don't look at my husband. I look at the medical kit. I look at the tools of the only trade that ever mattered. The ghost medic has finally come home, and she's brought the bill. The morning sun rises over Lake Michigan, cold and indifferent. It bleeds a pale, bruised purple across the Chicago skyline, cutting through the floor-to-ceiling glass of the boardroom. The transition is mechanical. The sterile sanctuary of the Montgomery Empire has been transformed into a bright, freezing crime scene. Federal marshals move with a quiet, lethal efficiency. They tag hard drives. They seal mahogany cabinets that hold 40 years of quiet, profitable sins. The electric hum of the city outside feels like a distant memory. Inside, there is only the sound of plastic evidence bags zipping shut. Julian is led toward the elevators. His hands are secured behind his back with heavy, white zip ties. The civilized mask of the high-stakes lawyer hasn't just slipped. It's shattered into 1,000 pathetic shards. He isn't shouting anymore. He's whimpering, a small, jagged sound that bounces off the obsidian glass. He looks at me, the woman he struck, the woman he tried to erase. For the first time, he doesn't see a broken girl. He sees the soldier who just performed a tactical extraction of his entire life. He looks away first. Sterling sits alone at the head of the table. He still clutches the gold-nibbed pen in a shaking hand. It rests on a contract that is now nothing more than scrap paper. He looks at me. His eyes are hollowed-out craters. The fire of his arrogance has been extinguished by the freezing reality of the law. "You're leaving me with nothing," he whispers. His voice is a dry, papery husk. "Everything I worked for, the Montgomery name, the legacy. The name was never yours to burn, Sterling." My voice is a steady, low-frequency hum. I lean over the table. I can see the reflection of my scarred neck in the obsidian glass, but I don't hide it. I let it catch the light. I had Thorne's team perform a secondary audit during the Section 12 hearing. Every asset you claim, this building, the penthouse, the estate in Lake Forest, it was all purchased using the diverted interest from my military indemnity. Funds that were legally non-transferable. Funds intended for veteran clinics, not your wine cellar. I slide a single piece of paper toward him across the glass. It isn't a plea deal. It isn't a mercy contract. It is a notice of immediate eviction. I'm the owner of record now, I tell him. I'm foreclosing on the lie. You have 2 hours to pack a single bag. I've already arranged a bed for you at the Hinds VA Hospital's long-term care wing. Sterling's breath hitches. He knows that wing. He's the one who lobbied to cut its funding 3 years ago. You spent 5 years telling the world I belonged in a facility for the fragile, I say. I stand up, adjusting the weight of my tactical jacket. Now, you're going to see how the men you robbed actually live. You're going to sleep in the rooms you tried to prevent me from building. Suddenly, the smell of the room shifts. The heat from the morning sun hit the metallic casing of a nearby server rack, burnt metal, the bitter, acidic tang of cordite. The boardroom floor dissolves into a wash of ochre dust. I'm back in the desert. I'm standing over a body bag. I'm looking at the face of a kid who never got to grow old because his armor failed. I can feel the grit of the sand in my teeth. I can hear the high-pitched whistle of the wind through a punctured radiator. Internal scan, pulse 65, grounding. I press my thumb against the jagged scar on my neck. The pain is my anchor. I pull myself back. I look at my father one last time. He is a small man in a large chair, a king of nothing. Pack light, Sterling. The VA doesn't allow silk. I turn my back on him. I don't wait for the tears. I don't wait for the excuses. As I walk toward the exit, I hear the heavy, metallic thud of his gold pen hitting the floor. It's the sound of an empire finally hitting the dirt. The ghost medic is moving out. The debt is settled. The wind off Lake Michigan doesn't care about bloodlines or bank accounts. It screams across the rooftop of my warehouse in the industrial district, sharp and biting, carrying the scent of winter rain and river silt. I stand at the edge of the gravel-strewn roof, my hands buried deep in the pockets of my tactical jacket. The sterile world is behind me. The smell of lilies, the floor wax, the sandalwood, it's all gone. I breathe in. The air here is honest. It smells of wet asphalt, old coffee, and the faint, clinical sting of sterile gauze from the clinic floors below. I look down at my hands. They are steady, a rock-solid 60 beats per minute. For 5 years, I was a ghost trapped in a silk cage. I was a soldier fighting an invisible war in a ballroom, surrounded by enemies who called themselves family. Tonight, the front lines have shifted. The war is over. The heavy steel door behind me creaks open. The sound is a low groan, familiar and grounding. I don't turn around. I don't have to. I know the rhythm of the footsteps. Judge Elias Thorne joins me at the railing. He doesn't say anything at first. He just stands there, his coat collar turned up against the chill, looking out at the glittering, indifferent grid of the Chicago skyline. Below us, the city is a machine of flickering lights and moving shadows. The news is calling it the Montgomery meltdown, Victoria, Thorne says. His voice is a gravelly rasp, tired but satisfied. The SEC has already locked the Cayman accounts. Julian is trying to trade names for a lighter sentence, but he's only digging a deeper hole. You have $1 billion fund and a reputation that has the Board of Trade paralyzed. What's the next move? I look at the horizon. The sky is beginning to turn a hard, bruising steel gray. Now we do the work, I say. The external dialogue is minimal, tactical. I've said enough words in boardrooms to last a lifetime. I reach for my trauma kit, resting on a concrete bench nearby. I run my thumb over the heavy nylon. Suddenly, the friction releases a phantom scent, burnt metal, the bitter, acidic tang of cordite. The roof vanishes. I'm back in the desert. I'm kneeling in the sand. I'm looking at the face of a kid who never got to grow old because his armor shattered. But this time, the memory doesn't pull me under. I don't jump, I don't shake. Internal scan, pulse 62, grounding complete. I press my finger against the jagged scar on my neck. It's no longer a mark of shame or a mental casualty to be managed. It's a badge of utility. I reach into the bag and pull out a thick, bound folder. It isn't a ledger or a list of debts. It is the architectural charter for the Langley Veteran Trauma Center. I am using the Montgomery assets to build a sanctuary for the people Sterling tried to exploit. I am turning his glass tower into a foundation for the men and women who actually know the cost of the ground they stand on. I am turning his stolen interest into blood, bone, and recovery. You're staying in the city then, Thorne asks. I'm staying where I'm needed, I reply. The ghost medic is dead. I am Victoria Langley. I am a soldier. I am a survivor. And for the first time since I stepped off that Black Hawk, I am the one holding the scalpel. I am no longer seeking a father's validation or a husband's mercy. I've foreclosed on their souls, and I've reclaimed my own. The wind howls, trying to push me back from the ledge. I don't move. I lean into the cold. I lean into the truth. I am home. In the final accounting of a life, we are rarely defined by the sterile monuments we build or the high society facades we maintain. True worth is an internal currency, forged in the fires of service and tempered by the scars we carry. The story of human value is often written in the blind sectors, those quiet, raw spaces where integrity is tested not by applause, but by the weight of our own silence and the utility of our own hands. To respect a person is to acknowledge the unseen battles they have won and the invisible armor they wear. It is a fundamental error to mistake stoicism for fragility or a quiet spirit for a broken mind. Competence is the only true status that cannot be inherited or stolen. It must be bled for, practiced in the dark, and held with a steady hand when the world is screaming. The philosophy of a life well lived rests on the principle of the uncoiled spring. We spend so much of our journey compressing ourselves to fit into the narrow corridors of others' expectations, seeking a validation that is often just a leash in disguise. But truth is a relentless extraction team. It doesn't matter how deep a lie is buried beneath silk and marble, the kinetic energy of reality will eventually trigger the release. When we finally reclaim our voice, we realize that the most profound justice is not found in the destruction of our enemies, but in the restoration of our own identity. We are the architects of our own recovery, and the only foundation that holds is one built on the grit of our own truth. Thank you for walking this path of grit and reclamation with us. If this story stirred a sense of justice in your heart or reminded you of your own hidden strength, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice is the final piece of the extraction. To stay connected with more visceral, cinematic narratives that honor the human spirit, please follow and subscribe to the channel. Until the next mission, keep your pulse steady and your head high.